What's up guys, Andrew here. Welcome back to another video of the review, MLS edition. This is the same type of idea as the EPL edition, so let's just jump right into it. Starting off with San Jose versus Vancouver. A team with a lot of skill, Vancouver should not be 8th in the West. They've had a disappointing season, and with players like Lava, Osted, Mesquita, Blas Perez, they should not be in 8th place. Yeah, the West is exceptionally hard this year, and there's no question about it, but a team with this type of talent really should be playing a lot better. And this game follows that sequence. Losing 2-1 at home to be fair, rather impressive San Jose team this year with Ameriquan Wando up top, David Bingham playing well in the goal, with Bernardes in the back. They're playing well, no question. But at home, you should not lose to a team like that with the players that you have. They had 56% of the possession, more shots, more headers won. The stats were all in their favor. They need to step up their defensive efforts and be more clinical in front of goal if they're going to try and make a push for the playoffs this year. Next up, Red Bulls versus Montreal. Red Bulls, when you get them fired up, you start taking out some of their players, they're not losing, and they're not giving you any mercy either. Red Bulls took out Montreal 3-1 this weekend, and BWP kept his good form. When BWP is hot, he's going to score at least 2 goals a game, and this is what happened. You put him under some pressure, he's going to score some goals. You bring in Damari, you bring in Verón up top, he's going to score for you. Sean Davis stepped up big time in the middle, and Sasha Question might as well be renamed the American Xavi for the way he passes the ball and finds some of these assists that he makes. If the Red Bulls play like that every weekend, they can't be beat. Moving on to New England, Philly. New England, what to say about these guys? They flopped this week, no question. Losing 4-0 at home is really rough. Philadelphia's a good team, nobody's arguing that, but at home getting embarrassed like that is not good. They just need to be more clinical in front of goal, which is not something you hear often with a team that has Kai Kamara up top. And they need to clean up their defensive effort. After watching the second goal, you see 5 different New England players get beat inside their own box. That's just unacceptable, it can't happen. For the third goal, the ball falls down on the 2 yards away to an unmarked player. Can't happen. It's just not good enough. For Philly though, this is a good win for them. It keeps them comfortably in the playoff spots. They're not stressing to stay in. There are a few games left and they could slip, but right now that win is good for them to keep them where they need and give them a little morale boost. Now moving on to DC United versus Portland. DCU beat a rather uninspired Portland team this weekend, where Portland gave up another goal on a set piece. Jake Gleason is by far one of the best goalkeepers in the league, but with a very injured back line, Portland keep relying on him too much without giving him help on the other end. It seems that the only way they're scoring right now is through Adi or Valeri, so if one of them are injured or shut down for the playoffs, they're going to have a tough time. So if one of these guys are shut down in big games where they're trying to push for the playoffs and make it in there, they're going to have a tough time. For DC though, this is a really good home win. They're still right on the edge of the bracket trying to look in, get into the playoff spot, and this is a great win for them to keep moving forward. To the Columbus NYCFC game where it was a thriller. 6 goals, 4 of them within the last 10 minutes, 2 penalty kicks. It was crazy. And this game speaks to what looks like maybe a big issue for NYCFC going forward. With DPs that have miles and miles on the legs, are 35, 36, 37 years old, they're going to let their players run by them in the last 15, 20 minutes of the game. And on a weakened, kind of confused back line who's still trying to put their pieces together with Chanot coming into the back next to Briant and Hernandez now playing outside with Josh Saunders, who's not the most reliable goalkeeper in the league. It's not going to go well for them if they can't fix that back line and their DPs are letting their midfielders run through them and create chances. They're going to give up late goals and that's going to hurt them later on in the playoffs. Now to FC Dallas versus Sporting Kansas City. Dallas split the points with Sporting Kansas City after a bicycle kick from Maxi Urruti later on in the second half. However, Dallas probably should have taken all 3 points, given that both of Dwyer's goals in the second half were off really poor defensive efforts. Defensive plays like that are really going to hurt FC Dallas in the long run. Now that they have a weakened attack with Fabian Castillo out, whether he goes to Turkey or not, I don't think anybody really knows what's going on with that yet. But they need to sort out the defensive issues ASAP or they're going to have a problem. For Kansas City, this is a good tie for them. It keeps them comfortably in the 5th spot in the West. It's going to be an important point for the next coming month and a half as they're fighting to stay in that playoff spot. Every point counts. Now to LA versus Colorado. Split points here for them, courtesy of an amazing goal from Gashi and a stellar performance from the man himself, Tim Howard. It seemed to be a rather LA-controlled game who had more possession, more shots. Numbers really favored them, but 5 saves from Tim Howard later and a stellar goal from Gashi. The points go 1-1 here, which is a fair result for 2 teams comfortably at the top of the Western Conference. Now to Chicago-Orlando. Chicago pull another point in a season that's been all too familiar for their fan. Sadly, the result is also like a bad dream for the Orlando City fans. Orlando's a team with the most ties in the league with 12, and a lot of them are against teams they really should have beaten. For Chicago, the season is basically over. But for Orlando, a team that can very easily make the playoffs this year in the East, these draws aren't going to cut it. They need to find a way to start putting the ball in the back of the net and holding their leads. And if they're not going to do it for themselves, they should do it for their amazing fan base, because they deserve it. Seattle versus RSL now, and Seattle are fun to watch again. Lodier has been a lifeline for this down-and-out Seattle team that looked like they were all but done from the playoff race this year. But now with a player who can pull the strings and set Dempsey and Morris forward, there's a good possibility that they can actually make a late playoff run. And if they make it into those playoffs, watch out, because it's going to be tough to stop them. And finally, the Houston-Toronto game. It was an underperforming Houston team that split the points with Toronto. The revival of Josie Altidore has taken all the pressure off of Giovinco to be the only one to score goals, and now it looks like they're both flowing pretty well. Toronto is sitting in second in the East, but they're not necessarily comfortable there, with only 4 points separating them from fifth. The East is really competitive this year, so it's going to be one to watch for the last few months to see who ends up where. But that's it for this week's episode. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to see this next week, and leave a comment to let me know what you think about this week's game. I'll see you next time, but until then, be good.